Hello, everyone. Today we're talking about common knowledge. Next slide, please. This is what we'll talk about. We'll talk about why we are building this. We'll talk about how, specifically what we're making, and then how we practice this in this particular setting. Let's see. Why is this important? One thing that's important is we all live in the same reality. The territory is the same, but we all carry separate maps. If these maps stray too far apart, we cannot talk to each other. We have seen this with social media, creating these bubbles of like separate realities, and we need a force that unites these realities back together, giving us something to believe in. Common knowledge can be built by common people. You do not need subject experts necessarily to decide what is valid. And we believe that with AI, we can do better than the solutions we have right now. Wikipedia, for example, is slow to update and labor intensive. It doesn't utilize AI as much as we believe we can. And yeah, we will have more languages, more topics than Wikipedia does with us. How do we do this? We do this through cyborg systems, so human AI cooperative mechanisms. Next, please. The first half of what we're doing is social tech. The second half is AI tech. Social tech is essentially this. You install a CK plugin. It's an overlay over your browser that you can turn on and off. You can see it in the top right. This blue thing tells you, oh, someone here says this should be common knowledge, and you can agree or disagree with it. You can also do that yourself. You can see a tweet or an archive page or something like that and say, oh, this should be common knowledge. This is something that is true. That you can see based on what this is done. And then algorithm measures your karma. Like, have you recommended something that other people thought was true, or have you voted the same way that later turned out to be true? The community ideology, and we think this is really important because this is what keeps Wikipedia alive, is common knowledge matters and is for everyone. Filter bubbles are bad, and I can easily contribute, and neutral POV. Everything should be written in a way that kind of everyone can agree on. Jan, can you please present the AI?
Yeah, so basically it's the core of the proposal is like how to blend like human cognition and AI cognition in a way which is sensible. So we use humans for things where like AI is not great, for example, vetting sources, or like when we need something to be done with some level of trust. We typically use like police, or like police-like algorithm is like one of the pieces. Version control. So roughly humans kind of can submit sources. By that we get a pool of data which needs to be distilled. Then the LLMs are like doing the distillation, and then there is a protocol where like if there is something new, the LLM like proposes like how to edit the common knowledge page, and the users can again like using police vote whether like the update is good, and then we have some sort of like core of the common knowledge, and we have some like presentation layer which again like using LLMs is able to make, for example, simplified versions like for like if you are, I don't know, explain me as if you are like 10 years old. So we have a demo. So yeah, so this is like to the extent like it's detectable. So for example, Wikipedia page on AI evolution doesn't exist. So we did run an example, like one run of the protocol using like handcrafted prompts, like to generate like this kind of common knowledge page about LLMs, and then an experiment like if we add a new source, for example, a paper about sleeper agents, like the LLM would kind of propose to modify the page to add some sentences about like challenges and like limitations to classical evals. So I think it's kind of like roughly viable at like current level of tech.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that segues nicely into this point, which is like, okay, so for something like a kind of like Wikipedia or common knowledge resource that relies on lots of people contributing to it and so on, how do you scale from kind of nothingness to actually having something that works? And we've been thinking about this a little bit. One of the things that we'd start by doing is this kind of V0. So you'll note, and I think this is actually a strength of the proposal, that most of the bits we're proposing kind of already exist, right? All of these tools and all of these bits of parts of the puzzle, so on, kind of exist already. You can kind of just plug them together. And maybe you'd plug them together by hand in a kind of hand crank version to begin with, as we saw with that kind of prior example. but eventually then that'll give you something that you could take to other people. The thing I want to point out maybe is this middle part, which is to focus on the scientific community first. So this has lots of advantages in the sense that scientific kind of resources are often maybe more high quality. If you're trying to recruit an initial population of people to contribute, then maybe the scientific community is an especially good target for that. You see scientific communities and organizations supporting similar such initiatives already. You have the fact that Cornell kind of works with Archive, for instance. You have a bunch of other kind of academic organizations that might be willing to support this. And you might also think that something like this could serve almost as at the beginning as kind of like a universal textbook, which kind of goes beyond something that Wikipedia is able to offer. I think given we're short on time, and I can't remember how many slides we've... Oh, no, that's it. Okay, well, step 3, profit. No, right.
One small point.
Yep, fantastic. Thanks, DJ.
Also for general audiences, the Polis algorithm is basically the same thing as like the similar algorithm to what community nodes on Twitter uses. So insofar as like what similar sorts of information aggregation algorithms have prior evidence, just wanted to point that out.
I also forgot that one extra point about the scientific community is that this is something that's maybe kind of less well served by things like Wikipedia, for example, because science advances relatively quickly. It contains like lots of deep knowledge, which isn't necessarily so amenable to the sorts of things that many people are easily able to add to Wikipedia, and so on. So there are a few sorts of things that help make that a good bet too, in my opinion. That's it. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, in some previous documentation, it was mentioned there'd be a database of debates, some disagreement mapping, and benchmarking of political bias. Can you say something about this? How do you represent disagreement, debates, and political bias?
Yeah, so short answer to it is...
Please.
Yeah, the short answer to it is the neutral point of view. It's an underrated piece of social technology behind Wikipedia, which allows Wikipedia to exist. You basically represent the debate, and you kind of represent the debate like proportionally to like how the debate like looks like in the source materials. Like people can way more easily agree on like how to distill a debate into a summary of like what the debate is about than to like figure out like who is right or wrong.
Okay.
DJ, do you want to add something?
Yeah. So I think that there's one version which is that like neutral point of view is like if one person is like it's raining outside and the other person is not raining outside, you can like open the window and check. If there's a third person who can open the window and check, then all those 3 pieces of information can be combined into a sentence. Alice says this, Bob says this, Carol says this. If there's no Carol to check, you can at least agree on Alice says this and Bob says this. So that sentence can be agreed upon from the NPOV either ways. More sophisticated forms of like disagreement mapping, if possible, could be like parts of later versions based on like how the knowledge like bank grows and stuff.
Another piece of like, I mean, empirically like Wikipedia is like pretty popular, like all of us are using it, like Arbitral and like the argument mapping services, like not really so it's also important to be partially demand driven in what to build first.
Yeah, I'm interested. All projects like this have this sort of network effects problem, the kind of bootstrapping problem. I'm wondering how you've thought about that. Number one, and number two, how many person hours or person years of effort do you think would be necessary to have a resource that would be large enough and high quality enough for you to begin to have some of those network effects?
Yeah, so I don't fully agree. Like Wikipedia, like kind of core of Wikipedia is made by a pretty small group of people. Like kind of the core number of like English Wikipedia editors is like less than 10,000 people. And like rest of the world is like reading it. There are like 40 million people who made some edit on Wikipedia, but that's not what like actually makes Wikipedia function. It has way less stronger like network effects than like social networks and stuff like that. I think like if you kind of, I think like this is viable with like, I don't know, like 100 contributors and like LLMs. You did some like firm estimates based on like how much like human labor goes into Wikipedia, how large fraction of this would be like automated by LLMs. If you multiply the numbers, like it seems like this is plausibly viable, given that like LLMs are probably able to automate like already like more than like 90% of the labor. like if LLMs get better or like AIs get better, like this has like kind of good scaling properties that the amount of human labor kind of goes down.
So 100 true fans is all you need.
Yeah, something like 100.
Like, of course, more people, better quality.
Yeah.
It's like one small thing which I don't know. I'd certainly be open to this. Is like an immediate way that this could scale is you take a proposal like this to the Wikipedia Foundation. You go like, hey, wouldn't Wikipedia be better if you use these sorts of things and built this on top of Wikipedia? And maybe they'll say yeah, and that's great. And then we just do that instead, and then you already kind of solve that problem. But that's wouldn't want to rely on that. And I don't think that the success of the project does rely on that. But it's like it's a strategy we could adopt. Don't know.
One more thing to add to that is that the reason what makes this scalable is that as LLMs get better, we need fewer and fewer humans actually writing anything, and more just like light vetting. And so in the future where LLMs create a lot of information, which will overwhelm Wikipedia's human-only model, this model actually just kind of adapts really naturally. And each time you give feedback on like why you rejected some edit, LLM actually learns from that. So we're hoping that eventually it just becomes really good at its job. So we need really few humans in the loop.
I think what you need to do is convince Wikipedia to create something called Wiki Labs, where they explicitly say, oh, we're going to try with this new weird stuff, not going to put the entire social sanction of the organization behind it, but have basically an innovation arm for trying new things.
Yeah, I co-founded a Wikimedia chapter Czech Republic. I am happy to bet against Wikimedia Foundation adopting this. Unfortunately, like in a better world, like maybe like